Versailles, year 1685. The court was as brilliant as ever. Balls, wine, perfumes. The fountains danced to the rhythm of Baroque music. The walls reflected gold, and the gardens seemed sculpted by gods. And amidst all this, Louis XIV, the Sun King, ruled with the arrogance of one who believed himself immortal. But one morning, as he dressed with his servants, the ritual of the lever du roi, the king's lever, where dozens of servants assisted him upon awakening, Louis frowned. A pang, a burning pain, a pain where no king should feel it. At first, he hid it. It wasn't proper for a monarch to mention carnal pain, but the pain returned, worse and deeper. He couldn't walk without clenching his teeth. The anal area was inflamed, tender, almost untouchable. Worse still, it was oozing dot. And anal fistula is an infection that forms a tunnel from the inside to the skin. At that time, it was a sentence of misery, or death. Louis XIV, the Sun, couldn't sit on his own throne. The royal doctors arrived with their parade of errors. Aromatic ointments, bloodletting, purges, lavender enemas. Nothing worked. He only got worse. And while the king suffered in silence, the court whispered. The sun is going out, they said. His backside betrays him. Some nobles laughed in the gloom. But in Paris, miles from the glitter of Versailles, one man would sharpen his destiny. Charles-François Félix de Tassy was not a nobleman. He was a man with firm hands and long silences, born into the rough world of barber-surgeons. He didn't study in academies. He cut. He opened. He sewed. He lived among blood and pus. When he learned of the king's problem, because in France, even royal infections were public rumors, he saw an opportunity. Or a doom. Curing the Sun King could elevate him to heaven. Failing. Would bury him nameless. He was summoned in secret. The king didn't want it known that a rough-handed butcher would be his savior. Charles Felix knelt before the monarch, observing his expression twisted with pain. Your Majesty, he said in a deep voice, there is no ointment or prayer that will save him. Only iron. And precision. Louis looked at him, not as a king, as a man. As a fragile being on the edge of the abyss. Do what you must, he whispered. But Felix didn't dare cut right away. No, he wanted perfection. For months, he trained on living bodies, prisoners condemned to death. He injected them with fat to create artificial fistulas. He opened them. He studied them. He failed. He learned. He failed again, until his hands memorized the anatomy of hell. Meanwhile, the king barely left his chambers. The pain forced him to sleep on his side and avoid dances and banquets. The court began to whisper about names of successors. November 1686, the day of the surgery. In a private room, without witnesses or trumpets, the king was laid face down. There was no anesthesia. Only faith in the hand of the man wielding the scalpel. Felix took the instrument specially forged for the occasion, long, curved, made to glide through the flesh without hesitation. The first cut was precise. The king gritted his teeth. He didn't scream. The second, deeper. Pus oozed out. Then blood. Felix removed the damaged tissue, inserted a small silver cannula to drain it. He sewed with thick thread. It lasted an eternity, or maybe minutes. When he finished, the king was trembling. He was sweating, but he was alive. And for the first time in months, the pain was beginning to subside. The following days were uncertain. Any infection, fever, or bleeding could kill him. But the wound healed. Little by little, Louis XIV started walking again. He started smiling again. He started reigning again. And when he reappeared in the gardens of Versailles with his tall wig and ivory cane, the court acclaimed him as if he had been resurrected. And then, the incredible. The fistula became fashionable. Dozens of nobles began to say they suffered similar pains. They wanted surgery. They wanted to have the king's scar. They wanted Felix to cut them like the sun. The surgeon was ennobled, received land, a fortune, and the respect that academic medicine had denied him. Louis XIV lived for almost 30 more years. He reigned for 72 years in total. He died an old man, but he never forgot the time a man with firm hands and a dark soul saved him from the abyss with a scalpel. And so, in the marble halls and gilded mirrors of Versailles, the echo of that day when the sun bled can still be heard ... and was saved by a barber with the name of a surgeon. What few people knew was that Charles-François Félix was neither an academic doctor nor an enlightened nobleman. He had been born into the rough world of barber-surgeons, those who shaved beards in the morning and amputated legs in the afternoon. The doctors of Paris despised him. He didn't speak Latin. He didn't quote Galen. But what Felix had was something the others didn't. Hands that could cut without hesitation. Until then, surgeons were seen as blood workers. But after the Sun King's operation, everything changed. Louis XIV ennobled him. He gave him land, wealth, and something more important, legitimacy. Thanks to that operation, the first officially recognized school of surgery was founded in France, and surgeons began to move from being barbers to becoming respected physicians. What began as an embarrassing wound ended up being a surgical incision in the history of medicine. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. See you in the next video.